Hello, friends. We all have been mediators right since our childhood. We all used to have been mediating between warring friends, sometimes just saying, okay, I apologize on his or her behalf to resolve the dispute. And invariably, we were successful. There used to be no tools or scientific methods. I do not mean to discredit the modernization and development of mediation process. Rather, I am grateful to Supreme Court Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee and the Supreme Court Bar Associations for organizing 40 hours of mediation trainings for many of us. My salute to two wonderful trainers and teachers, Shri K.K. Makhija and Justice Neerja Bhatia. My friends Ashraf and Farida have offered a wonderful book, The Art and Science of Effective Mediation. And it beautifully says, I quote, mediation is both an art and a science. One can study and train to be a certified mediator, but there is much more to it than just theory. Mediation is an art. A mediator creates the right environment to make seemingly impossible conversation possible. Unquote. We can safely say that the involvement of soul and tools together make a brilliant mediator. As children, we were successful mediators only because we were deeply in love with each other, and both the warring parties used to have immense faith in our sincerity and impartiality. As children, the purity of soul was sufficient, as the issues were minor and egos were flimsy. As adults, we need to deal with complex issues and inflated egos. So the purity of soul needs to be evolved into maturity of soul. Or we can say that one need to be an evolved soul, matured soul to be a successful mediator. It is not a joke to please everyone or win hearts, as the poet says, फिजाए अर्श पे उड़ना तो कोई बात नहीं, किसी के दिल में उतरना कमाल है प्यारे. This means that it is no big deal to acquire worldly status. The real achievement is to make someone feel nice or touch someone's heart. I am convinced that most important component of the mediation training is being given least importance. That is why I thought of sharing my perspective with the comrades in the mediation world. The most important component is an evolved soul, mature soul. Every religion preaches us that the highest level of evolvement is to conquer the self. Socrates said it so beautifully. The life unexamined is not worth living. Unquote. Einstein made a profound statement that the purpose of education is training of mind. It reminds me of a wonderful couplet in which one enlightened master said it so beautifully. And I quote, अपने दिल में डूब के पाजा सुरागे ज़िंदगी, अपने दिल में डूब के पाजा सुरागे ज़िंदगी, तू अगर मेरा ना बना मत बन, अपना तो बन. Which means even if you're not being sincere to anyone, be honest to yourself at least. You can only find blissful life within you. I have three interesting incidents to narrate before we proceed to discuss why an evolved soul, mature soul, is the most important component of any mediation process. In fact, these incidents would further strengthen this view. The purer the soul, the quieter the mind, sharper the intellect. The first incident which immediately comes to my mind is that noted lawyer Ram Jethmalani had filed a criminal defamation against Chandraswamy. Many top lawyers of the country, including some retired judges, told Chandraswamy that it was a clear case of conviction. You can well imagine, if Ram Jethmalani was the complainant himself, there was no chance for the accused to escape conviction and severe punishment. I always feel indebted to Ram's love and affection for me, although I was the opposite counsel and was cross examining Ram in this matter. He still loved me. The other party, Chandraswamy, also had a lot of respect for my professional capability as well as my integrity. Since both the parties had immense faith in my capabilities and sincerity, a very complicated matter was amicably resolved without exchanging a single penny. The other incident which I wish to mention, I conducted a very interesting mediation. This was mediation between God and the mother of a dear friend of mine who was suffering from the last stage of cancer. She was quite angry with God and was all the time accusing God for all the miseries. She used to like my poetry, however, shairi, songs, and had special love for me. When I went to see her one day, I politely told her that our prayers to God were not a deal with the God, auntie. Since she loved my poetry, she could immediately connect with the couplet of Allama Iqbal which I recited to it. It said, "Sodagari nahi, ye ibadat khuda ki hai," which means praying is not a business deal with God. I further submitted to her politely that, dear auntie, we pray only to convey our gratitude to God and not as beggars to demand one thing or the other. She was so happy to listen to these thoughts that I could see a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She profusely thanked me and said, "Thank you, beta, my son, now I can die peacefully." On another similar occasion, one of my friend's father got angry with everybody, including God, after the departure of his loving wife. He was totally frustrated since he firmly believed that he should have died before his wife died. The whole family was confused as to how to handle the situation. Imagine a senior bureaucrat having retired from a responsible position going total haywire after the death of his wife. I politely asked him, "Uncle, who is to decide whether a husband is to die first or his wife?" He said, "No doubt, it is God." I further asked, "Dear uncle, how would you have felt if you had died before and auntie was in the desperate situation?" He said that there should be no reason for her to feel depressed because everybody is to die and it is the God who decides who is to die first. So, whatever I wanted to say as a mediator came from him, and from that moment onwards, he has been at peace with himself. I narrated these incidents only to demonstrate that it is the confidence of the parties in the mediator, it is the personality of the mediator, the aura he carries, which is most important for any successful mediator. The evolvement of soul is surely most important component. We all are taught that one of the important job of the mediator is to win the confidence of both the parties. He is to ensure neutrality, impartiality, and confidentiality. He is to rekindle a lost balance of power between the two parties. Thomas Paine said it very emphatically, and I quote, "The balance of power is scale of peace," unquote. It is not very challenging. Is it not very challenging to make the atmosphere congenial but not allow the parties to take it casually? Is it not challenging to understand feelings and heal the hurt but not create an impression of sympathy for a particular party? Is it not challenging to decide when to ask open-ended question, when to ask a closed question, and when to ask a hypothetical questions? Parties need to be sure that he is an active listener and he is listening to them attentively. At an appropriate time, he needs to indulge in an empathetic listening. He, in the meantime, needs to understand both the verbal and non-verbal communication and simultaneously evaluate the responses. Is it a joke to be non judgmental, but at the same time judge the veracity of the allegation and claim objectively, to build rapport, reassure neutrality, create a momentum to reach settlement, to appropriately apply BATNA, best alternative to negotiation, Malatna, most likely bargain technique, distributive technique, maintaining eye contact, to pick up clues from nonverbal, to engage in conversation, to elicit more information to understand the sincerity of emotions, to go to the root of the dispute, to understand underlying interest, to build confidence, appropriate use of jokes, anecdotes, sense of humor. The list is too long, but everything is relevant and important. Is it small challenge to manage the emotions of both the parties and manage the self simultaneously? Is it less challenging to influence and persuade the parties as a facilitator without being looked at as a partial or biased? Is it not an uphill task to convince fighting forces that it is a win win situation for both? At times, it is very difficult to overcome this bias. Tom Brokaw says it so profoundly, and I quote: bias, like beauty, is often in the eyes of the beholder. Unquote. Dealing with emotional and process deadlocks is clearly equally challenging many a time. At times, one party is smart and their lawyer is also seasoned, but the other party and their representatives are not smart or wise. Should the mediator be a mute spectator to injustice being offered and accepted is one of the biggest challenges. There are different school of thoughts, but I firmly believe that at times the mediator is to act as a counselor and conciliator to do complete justice in the matter. In fact, this view is supported by many veterans in the field of mediation. Honorable Justice Dr. Sudhir Jain says is so profoundly, and I quote him: mediation in the Indian context must be blend of mediation, counseling, and conciliation. Unquote. But to achieve this whole list of do's and don'ts, one surely needs to be an evolved soul. Most significantly, the aura, the presence of the mediators ought to be very living, lively, and strong. Germon Daly says it beautifully, and I quote: we have got to be able to carry something of substance in our souls that comes through in words, in our person, in our presence. Unquote. Ashraf and Farida's book, we discussed above, Art of Mediation, profoundly says, and I quote: in short, the mediator is challenged with psychology, sociology, communication, law, philosophy, anthropology, politics, economics, finance, maths, and a few more disciplines. Unquote. It is also very important to work on our communication skills. Having studied in Oxford and Harvard, I must say with sense of pride that formula given by our great Saint Kabir on communication skill is the best formula in the world. Kabir says, and I quote: वाणी ऐसी बोलिए मन का आपा खोए औरन को शीतल करे आपन शीतल होए, which means that one should kill his ego before speaking and should speak something which sounds not only pleasant to others but also to the speaker. Ahmad Faraz says it equally beautifully when he says, सुना है लोग उसको आंख भर के देखते हैं तो उसके शहर में कुछ दिन ठहर के देखते हैं, सुना है बोले तो बातों से फूल झड़ते हैं, अगर ये बात है तो बात करके देखते हैं, which means that someone speaks so beautifully that it seems that his words are showering petals of flowers. So at the cost of repetition, at the end I say, friends, that soul of mediation is an evolved soul, matured soul, great soul. So whatever name you can give it, as they say, प्यार को प्यार ही रहने दो, कोई नाम ना दो. With a sense of satisfaction, I say that one of the finest judges ever to adorn the Supreme Court, Justice Kurian Joseph, in a workshop with mediators, recommended the participants that they read my book, Meet Your Soul, if they wish to be a good mediator. You can Google search this book or email me to get a soft copy or hard copy. The same is gift for everybody. I would be too happy to receive your comments and suggestions to make the process of mediation better and better. You may email me on Ashok Arora 2310 at gmail.com. ASHOKARORA 2310 at gmail.com, or WhatsApp me at +91 98 100 620 89. Thank you. Bye.